Okay. Cognitive balance. We'll just quickly get into this now. And I'm going to skim it, obviously. It's a very, very rich domain of exploration. So cognitive balance is about really the fact that even though we may believe we know our goals and we may believe that we know what it is that we really care about, why is it then that we still go off track, and what can we do about it? So I'm going to run a little poll. Why? Because I like to have fun, and this is fun, and fun makes us feel good. So this poll is about this dress, which many of you would have seen before. And I'd like you to just answer this question. What are the main colors that you see in this dress? Do you see gold and whitish, or do you see blue and black? They don't let me vote. It's terrible. I feel violated. All right, we'll end it. And I'll share the results. Yeah. So you can see that a couple of people in this particular survey are seeing goldish and whitish. I actually wasn't allowed to vote. I see gold and white. And I don't understand how anybody can see blue and black. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. It really doesn't. But the majority of you are able to see blue and black, or they're seeing it as blue and black. So what on earth is actually going on here? And by the way, if you look at the world, and across a much, much bigger population, it turns out that around about 60% of people see this dress as blue and black, and 40% see this dress as being gold and white. And you have to ask, well, what on earth is happening here? And what this really points to is that the way that we experience things is a very, very personal thing. And what some neuroscientists, so it hasn't actually been worked out what's going on here, but what some neuroscientists believe is that it depends upon what has been installed into your nervous system about the default, it's like an automatic white balance system that we have in our minds that was created by our experience of what lighting conditions we were brought up in. And it turns out that that there are two sort of basic criteria here, that some people were brought up under a sort of a mainly fluorescent lighting experience, and others were brought up in a mainly natural light. And these lightings have different color temperatures. And what happens for us is that we take in the data that's happening here. We assume the color of the light from our mind, from our experience, without knowing that we're doing it. And we delete that from the scene to leave us with the experience of what we see as the colors. Unbelievable. And this is pretty hard. I mean, this is a real, something that's very, very close to being a direct sensory phenomenon. Not too much predictions going on here. And it's happening automatically. And this is obviously the seat of our bias, seat of our cognitive biases. We just see things automatically through interpretations, maybe, which are related to predictions. We see three things not as they are, but we see them as we are. And knowing this is really potentially quite empowering. Even something visual like this, we're doing that. We're adding what's in the mind to what is actually occurring to create the experience. So we tend to think that events that occur outside us lead to consequences. We tend to believe that if something triggering happens out there, so one example might be, I'm called to be in a meeting and being expected to contribute. And then as a result of that, something that's happening out there, we have a consequence, and it's an emotional and behavioral consequence. This is why I feel like this, because that happened. Because you said this, that's why I did that. Things like this are happening in our mind all the time. So in this particular example, I'm in an important meeting and I'm being expected to contribute. Therefore, I emotionally feel anxious and unsafe. And when I feel anxious and unsafe in these contexts, I must withhold my opinions to help me feel safer, even though those opinions may be valuable. Okay, so there's that. But of course, we know that that's not true. And cognitive balance is knowing that's not true in the very moment that we need to know that that's not true, that there's a storyline running in our mind. And knowing, therefore, that these storylines, which we call Bs, so in other words, instead of A activating event leading directly to consequence, activating event instead leads to a set of beliefs, which are really a set of those predictive thoughts and stories. And it's those beliefs that then lead to the consequences. Now, the good news, if you buy into this, and it's not really controversial, the good news is that you believe that it's more about how you are than how things are that cause emotionally and behavioral consequences for you. Then you'll also buy into the idea that those beliefs can be changed, and that when those beliefs change, your emotional and potentially behavioral consequences will also change. So looking at that example, I'm in an important meeting and I'm being expected to contribute is an activating event. And maybe the belief that I'm running is, wow, hold on, if I speak up, I might look stupid. So we make that automatic inference. So there's an interpretation. And we have a core belief based on a prediction that, well, I must never look stupid because looking stupid is dangerous, because if I look stupid even just once, then people might think that I am existentially stupid. And if people think that I'm existentially stupid, then obviously I'm going to lose my job. I mean, that's just clear. And if I lose my job and I won't be able to get another one, then obviously my family will leave me. And therefore I'm going to die alone and poor. So we immediately go into this prediction of dreaded outcomes. And as you know, this is just a bit more detailed on what we said earlier on about the predictive mind. Therefore, obviously, my coping strategy, my behavioral coping strategy is just to reserve my opinion, because then it keeps me safe from that dreaded outcome. Now, of course, we have no idea that we're going down this ladder of inference, as we call it, downward ladder. But actually, that's what's going on in our brain beneath the level of our conscious. Because remember, anxieties, so fears, emotions at that level are created to help us to deal with the outcome of dying, not staying alive, or having something which is really close to our survival that we need being taken away from us. And that's not really the world that we're living in right now. We're still going to be breathing, actually. Well, number one, if you're making assumptions that are not true. If you speak up and you make a mistake, then it probably doesn't necessarily mean that you look stupid. And even if you do look stupid, even if that did happen, then it doesn't necessarily mean that people will believe that you are stupid. And even if they did, it wouldn't mean that you would lose your job. And even if you did lose your job, there's a pretty good chance that you have some skills and experience that might enable you to get another one. But just in case that was true, it's not really true that your family are going to leave you, probably. They might actually even support you. And so you're not going to die necessarily alone and poor. So just know that. So here's a few of the other ones that kind of wander up into our awareness and hijack our attention without us knowing it, and create emotional and behavioral consequences for us that actually take us away from what we care about, and possibly even make it more likely that the dreaded outcomes that we are trying to avoid might happen. Because we have choice. There's a long ladder of influence, and at every point on that ladder, we actually have a choice that can interrupt the ladder, take a rung out of the ladder so that it doesn't kind of continue to go down into that dark place. Yeah, there's a couple there. I mean, I quite like all of these, but I like the one at the bottom. I must never say no. All of these are actually very common. I must never say no. Why? Because my worthiness is defined by me as pleasing others. That's how I identify. People who say no are unwilling and they can't succeed. Right? That's an assertion that we're automatically making. And saying no is not comfortable because I can't bear not being well regarded at all times. I need to feel worthy. So therefore, my behavioral consequence is I take on too much work and I need to be a people pleaser. So all of these, we all have our unique patterns of influence that we can talk about. Okay, and there's a lot of others. There's like 13 here that are really common, and I'll just leave you in your own time to just ask yourself, what do these apply to you? What are these hidden, we call these hidden goals that we don't know that we have, but they grab us and take control of our mind and therefore our behavior in moments of choice when we need to be attending to something else, right? Ask yourself, which of these might apply to you? And what insight might you gain from questioning these stories? Okay, so other things that we can do, we can practice this too. The full sentence is this too will pass. And that's why I talk about the mental time machine part two. Chuck yourself again into that mental time machine, set the dial to 2 weeks from now, and from that point, ask yourself how you're feeling about this situation now. Okay. It may well be that you know that you'll go back to the knowledge that, oh, wait a minute, I'm seeing this too negatively. There's some things that I can do. And by the way, I've been in situations similar to this before, and I've always managed to work my way through it. And so I'm probably going to be okay 2 weeks from now, maybe even an hour from now, and certainly a year from now. So let's wind back that feeling back to the present moment so we can bring our resources back online. So about ABC that we spoke about just now, we can also add DE and in fact also F, where D is, let's have a look at the evidence and dispute some of this evidence, challenge it. And then let's E, which stands for explore, potential other stories that might fit the facts, okay? Get rid of the fake news and see what might be more real around what is actually occurring right now. All that's really left is the first start and a very, very wide range of potential responses that we might have to that dart rather than only the one that's coming first into the mind, okay? And then we can do F. F means having done the D and the E, we can then actually make a plan. What is it that we can do now? What goals can we set to plan a different path forward from what the mind has automatically created? Right? So that's about, it's really related to what's the story, where's the evidence? And by the way, with the F, it's better to lift one's mind out of the problem now and direct it to something that's slightly longer term that we would like to have. And then plan a path. And the moment we start planning the path, you'll notice we feel better, okay? It lifts us out of the gloom. Cultivating a positive explanatory style. What that means is a lot of things, but it includes reframing how we look at the potential for failure. So remember, resilience is about growing through failure. And the ability to be able to grow through failure is seeing failure for what it is. It's just doing something that just didn't happen to get the result that you wanted to have. And seeing the opportunity to learn something from that fact. You now know something that didn't actually work. It gives you this wonderful opportunity maybe to notice that growth occurs when we make mistakes and when we don't get the results that we want. If there wasn't failure, there really would be no growth. Ask any 2-year-old child that's trying to learn to walk about that. Okay, so there's a little sort of set of questions that you can ask yourself, which I'm really not going to go down, but you can look at it yourself later, that can help you to reinterpret some of these stories, okay, and give you the motivation to do so. Okay.